Welcome back. This is our third part in a little mini series on AI hallucinations. And we first discussed what they are, how to define them. Then we talked about how they are detected, how you go about detecting them. This specific one I want to make a little more practical, and that's what you can do, either tools to implement or even just processes to help either detect or limit and reduce the amount of hallucinations that the AI model you're using could potentially output. As we know, there's a strong possibility of hallucinations in that probabilistic nature of AI models. It's important to then try to figure out maybe the practical steps of what you might be able to do or put in place to help defend and lessen that possibility for your operations. So I want to start with different processes we can put in place. The first thing I want to point out is the user input side of things. So our first layer of defense is, in my estimation, the most fundamental, and that's the data that the AI uses. An AI can't give you accurate answers if the source material is outdated, irrelevant, or just plain wrong. And that often occurs, firstly, at the data that the AI is trained on. You are probably like me, where I don't really have oversight into that. I don't have control over that. But when we're choosing AI models, we do have the decision to do some of that research, to do some of that looking behind the curtain, or at least asking the questions as far as the quality of data and maybe perhaps the specifics of the data the AI model is trained on. A lot of the large LLMs might not divulge that. So I want to get into our side of it, the information that we are putting in, whether that is the data that we are having the AI or LLM reference and the inputs, that is the prompts that we use. This is all about, we'll call it digital hygiene, right? You need to clean your internal data, focus on sources that are directly relevant to the task, and regularly audit them to make sure that the documentation being used is up to date, is without contradiction of other documentation that you might use. I want to focus primarily in this video on maybe you as, we'll call it, a solopreneur, a solo entrepreneur, or an individual use, as well as small to maybe mid-sized businesses and those steps we can take there. I'll make some reference to a large business detection process or scale. A lot of those are going to be more system-based and fully integrated systems. But specifically for you as an individual, think about the documents that you are feeding the AI. Before you paste that old project brief into the chat window, take 5 minutes and review it. Is it still accurate? Is it still relevant? Your data management can be as simple as a folder on your computer labeled AI-ready documents that you keep current. Things that you know you will want to continually update so that when you are interacting with those documents on an LLM, you are getting the best and most recent up-to-date type of outputs possible. On the small business side of things, this is where you can formalize the process a little bit more. You could as an individual as well, but assign one person within your organization, within your team, to be the owner of your knowledge base, your product specs, your company policies, and their job is going to be basically to review and update those documents at some sort of regular interval, whether that be quarterly, monthly, but really according to your scale and according to the ability of your team to be able to review those documentations that you're using, those documents that you're using. This ensures that whether you're using it for customer service or for processing of internal documentation or anything that might go out, that those things are up to date and you're not at risk, or perhaps lessening the risk of hallucinations. And it doesn't have to be overly complicated. You could do something like a simple Notion database or something on even Google Sheets. You could have your documents that state a last reviewed date, a status column, etc. If the document's out of date or falls without of those parameters, we mark it as such. And the AI should be pointed in interaction with those documents to only review documents marked current. This is a simple, free, and effective step that you can put in place. And really, you can start it by maybe just scheduling an hour to go through and identify and audit your top 5, most critical internal documents, as well as marking through your processes what is the most critical, the criticality of your operation. Another good idea is to schedule, maybe an hour in the upcoming week to identify and audit your top 5 most critical internal documents within the whole scope of what you're doing as an organization, and specifically how you are utilizing AI either as an individual or on an enterprise scale. You want to make sure that you know which documents are most crucial, have the highest criticality for accuracy, and making sure that those are up to date, especially if you're using them to feed into, perhaps a locally hosted, local source or open source LLM, or any sort of LLM interaction you might have. So the cleanliness and the accuracy of your data, massively important step, and something anyone can do. In that user inputs idea, we also have prompt engineering, or I like to think more of the term context engineering. I think that this is the most powerful and accessible tool that you have in your disposal, in your arsenal, to be able to combat against potential hallucinations. How you ask the AI is just as important as the data it has. Reminds me of a philosophy I like to live by, and that's that you can do the right thing the wrong way and still have bad results, right? So it's just as important of how you obtain the information as it is the actual information you're looking to obtain. Well, as it relates to prompts, you can see this as an example of a good prompt or a bad prompt. A bad prompt just says, summarize this. A good prompt has a lot more detail, right? Use the provided report only. The financial results in 3 bullet informations. There's a systematic and a step-by-step outline for the LLM, for the AI system, to have the specifics information that you are looking for, as well as kind of guardrails. It's important to frame what you're looking for in a specified manner. Take from this information, use this format. This is what I'm looking for specifically. A great method is called the ICE method. So instructions, constraints, and escalations. Give it clear instructions, add constraints. In this instance, use only the document provided, and give it an escalation path, like say, I don't know, if you're not sure. We talked about that in a previous video. That dramatically reduces the AI's tendency to invent or fabricate answers merely out of a desire to complete the task. And one thing you can do in addition is to adjust these temperature settings for an AI model. We talked a little bit about that in a previous video, but most AI tools have a temperature setting. It controls the creativity, but also the randomness of outputs. So for factual tasks, you want to have that turned way down low or cool as far as the model setting. And a temperature of, say, 0.9 might get creative with a financial summary versus a temperature of 0.2, which makes the output much more focused and factual. Looking those things up in your settings and knowing what you need as far as accurate factual basis versus the creativity side of it is just something that you have to determine for what works best for you as an individual, or within an organization setting, what works best for the specific work that you are doing. A second layer of AI defense or hallucination defense would be RAG, retrieval-augmented generation. I know it sounds very technical, but the concept itself is very simple. Instead of relying on AI's vast, large memory base, RAG forces the AI to read from a trusted source of information before it answers. It makes me think about human communication, right? I have a wealth of knowledge about the 1996 Green Bay Packers, but if after getting together with a friend or out to a movie and dinner with my wife, one of them asks, "Where did you park?" I don't need to be rifling through names like Sean Dotson, Reggie White, Gilbert Brown, Antonio Freeman. I need to access the part of my brain that remembers what kind and color of car I have, what landmarks or other vehicles I parked next to. I need the car parking knowledge and memory in my brain, not the sports nerd cam portions of my brain. And same goes for RAG and implementation in your organization. You're doing Manual RAG every time you copy and paste text into the prompt window and tell the AI to use it. That's a great start for you as an individual or even in your organization. For small businesses, you could use no-code tools to build simple RAG systems. You can create a chatbot by going to a site like po.com, or use your organization approved LLM and even a locally hosted LLM on something like LM Studio or anything LLM, Olama Download, etc. Upload your own PDFs like employee handbooks or product manuals, and it will only answer questions based on those documents. For instance, you could use a public terms of service document that you might be using or reading when you're signing up for an app or some service. And you can ask it a question that's only answerable from that doc, like what is the refund policy? What is the cancellation policy? And there it is within that LLM, the answer pulled directly from that trusted source with a citation, and really removing the possibility of a hallucination or fabricating an answer. The third layer I want to bring up in hallucination defense very briefly is human in the loop. Technology is awesome, wonderful, moving sometimes at seems like the speed of light. A friend of mine was just mentioning the other day that it almost feels like it's tough to remember life before AI at this point. But nothing beats that human oversight and that human expert input and your processes. And human in the loop is just that. It's creating a process where a person reviews and verifies the AI's output before it's finalized. This should be non-negotiable for things like legal documents, financial reports, or medical information. I would say it is imperative to make sure as you're setting up AI policies or AI processes and standards for yourself or your organization to know the things, to take time to figure out what those are, but know the things that must require human oversight and set up a simple tracking system or process for that. This task, or before this goes out, has to have human oversight, even if AI and LLMs are used up to that point. An added layer of defense. All right, layer number 4, basic detection mechanisms. How do you spot hallucinations automatically? And while enterprise tools are, fairly complex, there are simple methods we can use. And my favorite for its simplicity is the LLM as a judge model. You can use a second AI to basically check the first AI's work. I've included a prompt here on the screen that I've utilized in the past. And that second AI can be a smaller model. It could be just a different model within the same system, Gemini, ChatGPT, that you use, that is specifically curated, or the settings are set to be a fact checker of sorts. And if it answers yes, you've likely caught a hallucination, utilizing this prompt or this output, and that it needs human review. It's incredibly cheap and a surprisingly effective first pass filter. As I mentioned in the last video, it's surprising how often one AI model will catch inaccuracies or perhaps, just slight embellishments, we'll call it, of another AI model. All right, a couple other free tools that you can use in hallucination detection. Just anyone can use, right? Depends on scale for sure, but for you as an individual, for small businesses, I find that these are really beneficial. First one I want to show you is HAL-UMA, or Open Universal Machine Intelligence. And basically, it's a claim verifier, right? So you would have your context here, and you want to be able to verify these following claims. So I'm just going to show you, this is an example of the hare and the tortoise, familiar story. The claims to verify are: the tortoise won the race, both animals slept, the hare ran faster than the tortoise. And basically, you'll have that manual input, right, of the context, and then it will list automatically the claims to verify. And if my internet will cooperate, and here you see, so the claims to verify: the tortoise won the race, both animals slept, the hare ran faster than the tortoise, and the fox rigged the race. And it'll tell you how supported it is, how inaccurate it is, and citations there for where you can find that verification or the result of that. This is also showing you, the questionable aspect, kind of that almost 50-50 split. This is supported as far as the information given, the context given, and this obviously is supported as well. So this is an awesome, you can find it at umi.ai/halumi, and feel free to kind of play around with it. Use it in your day-to-day life. You feel like something is off or you just want to check it. Again, these things can be done kind of habitually. Maybe once a month, you go through and you randomly select some outputs and input them into here to verify the claim. And as we had talked about before, that'll help you catch or be able to note potential model drift. And that's something that will probably need to be handled by the developers or by the suppliers of your system, your service. These are things to be able to note and really to monitor, right, within your operations, this system that is working for you as an individual or in your business operations, to monitor if there seems to be some sort of decline. Another one here is the hallucination detector from exa.ai. We'll try it with the sample blog post. So this is about the Eiffel Tower. Again, just listing what would look like a potential output here. Okay, so there you see the examination here. It was originally built as a giant sundial in 1980 or 1822 rather. It shows you, 100% confident. This is refuted. Here's the sources telling you where. And again, these are both going to need manual input, right? You're going to have to take an output that was given from the LLM that you use and place it into one of these tools. But it's free and it's completely doable. And it's something that you can set up in some sort of routine or habitual standard for yourself as an individual or a business to fact check the outputs you are getting. And also if there's something that seems like, I wonder if this is right before I push send, before I send this out from me or from my organization, these are ways that you can double check those with pretty great accuracy. And my suggestion with these, whether it's the LLM as a judge or these fact checker options, there's also Amazon Ref Checker, which takes a little bit more of a setup as far as the technicality part of it, but is an incredible tool. It's often integrated with a lot of other AWS services. But experiment with these, utilize them, see if it pops anything in your outputs as you're going about your interaction with AI or LLMs, and set up some sort of monthly reminder just to take some different excerpts, put them in, see if there's any sort of drift occurring. I did want to move on to, maybe more of the automated detection tools, less of the manual outputs. A lot of these have some free versions, but most of them have extensive detection tools with paid access or integrations in your company. And a lot of them will list either a pricing per token or perhaps just contact them for pricing. These are things that can kind of scale with you for a larger organization or for more AI use, perhaps more stations utilizing them within your organization. Okay, so these are some of the ones, like I said, that might have more of the paid option and whatnot. First one I wanted to point out is Guardrails AI. This is a pretty cool site. It does kind of have a specificity towards compliance. So a lot of times utilized in banking or legal type of settings or organizations, often utilized, perhaps more so on the development side, but there are integrations into already established, companies and whatnot, checking for things like toxic language, competitor mentions, data leaks, all kinds of AI risk, real-time hallucination detection. That's what kind of earmarked it for me as far as just a tool to show. I don't have an actual demo per se of this, but just kind of showing how it works here and how it is utilized within your organization. One thing I did want to point out is just all of these validators, right? This incredible list, and you can kind of select it in and put it together within your implementation. I know that they do have some that you can, some are open sourced or some that have open source code that you can implement. Again, I didn't do that myself, but it's just something I wanted to point out. Guardrails AI is something to look at for an enterprise level tool. The other one I wanted to mention is the Galileo Protect. So you can kind of see, this shows a little bit of a demo, just how it's going to be utilized. specifically like what it does within your system. There is a free version of this. Both this one and the next one I'm going to show you, the free version of the demo I had won't run simultaneously with my recording device, just my own hardware limitations here for devices I'm using. But I did want to show this so you kind of establish your rules, you iterate your conditions, and then this is Galileo Protect specifically. They do have an observe and evaluate options as well. And again, a lot of this is documentation is just available for anyone to go in and kind of see, how they utilize that integration, how this might be a tool that you could perhaps use. Another one I wanted to mention is Pythia, and this one's really awesome. This one definitely has some lower cost options for you, and this shows just a quick example of how it's integrated and how it winds up checking that NLI, LLM checker, KG checker, that triple extractor. We had talked about that in the last video of kind of that like breakdown of the outputs into triplets, and even has a knowledge graph. It has metrics which kind of show the operating and the health of your LLM that's in use as it's checking for that. It's that semantic AI hallucination. That's the word I was looking for with the triple extractor. The demo, again, did not seem like it was kind of working, but feel free to hop on this askpythia.ai and look for the demo. Perhaps you can run it. I did get it to run without recording at the same time, but it wound up having difficulties. So here's that metrics I was kind of showing you that it'll evaluate your performance or the performance of your LLM specifically. Does have some different tiers here. So like a small to mid-size organization, looking at about $49 per unit per month, and just kind of breaks it down in these different tiers. The last one I wanted to show is AI Mon, and this one's really awesome to me. It has a very GRC bent or focus in a lot of it, including some different, their metrics, custom metrics, according to the NIST AI RMF, the EU AI Act as well. This is kind of showing you the different guidelines and what it looks for or abides by. All right, so this shows you you can put in your own information here if you want. I'm just going to run through their kind of provided example on the WhatsApp, an output on WhatsApp messaging app. So you would, there's your context, here's your prompt, your output for, what the large language model generated. Again, this is just showing you what it does. It does have automated features. You could go into this sandbox and just run it with a specific manual input, as we discussed previously. And then this is the result here. So it shows you, groundedness, and just kind of breaks down how it arrives on that score, output relevance, adherence, completeness. It breaks it down from all these categories. Really awesome tool I found, or thought it wound up being a really, really cool tool there. And it shows, the data sets. You can even generate the data sets you're using it based on those, evaluations within certain models that you're using. Have multiple models listed there. One thing I failed to mention on the Pythia one here is that it is integrated with AWS Bedrock as well as LangChain. And, this one has its different integrations as well as full documentation outlining it. So just some really awesome tools I wanted to just briefly highlight for maybe larger scale, that when you're getting into that small to mid to larger scale business. And really it's about, that continuous improvement, starting with the small steps first, going on from there. Even something as trivial as this hallucination evaluation leaderboard, right? So this kind of updates fairly often from Hugging Face, and it just shows you, based on the very common LLMs in use today, hallucination rate, factual consistency. You can look into the details of how this is determined, but it just kind of gives you, a quick breakdown of each model as it's run through this hallucination detection evaluation, really. And I want to close with this thought, and that's that managing hallucinations is not a one-time fix. It's also not a one-time solve. It is still just a small portion of overall AI security, but I think a valid portion to look into and to monitor in some fashion, whether that be the manual usage, the basic automation or basic tools, or even something larger like a enterprise scale type of solution there. One thing I think is important is just to have something like this set up for yourself, for your organization. Honestly, it could even start with small, very minute steps of having a simple Google form, which you can create that just says AI hallucination report form for all the employees utilizing AI within your organization. And it can ask three simple things: what tool, what was your prompt, and what was the error. Anyone could fill that out in 30 seconds. The best part would be that all the responses through that Google form are automatically populated into a spreadsheet. And then once a month, you can kind of review that spreadsheet, looking for any sort of details, any sort of pattern, as well as evaluating and investigating the specific details. Anything that can be almost like a second step in educating your users about AI usage. All right, so there you have it. That's kind of a 5-layer strategy to tame AI hallucinations. I'm going to call it your starting 5, since I guess Fab 5 is already taken. Shout out Chris Webber. By the way, you think that Chris Webber puts his kids in timeouts? Food for thought. There's an example of accessing the wrong side of my brain. But the starting 5 are these: curate your data or master your prompts. Use RAG where you can. Keep humans in the loop. Use basic detection and automated detections tools, and then that continuously improve. You don't need a massive budget or a team of data scientists to start. Begin with better prompting, data management, and those specified human reviews, and then gradually layer in simple RAG systems or automation tools. It's important to remember that AI hallucination detection is still developing. It's still a developing field. No single tool is perfect, which is why human oversight will likely remain necessary for at least some time with hallucinations specifically. But by being informed and creating systematic guidelines, both personal use, organization-wide, as well as developing the habit of fact-checking, I think that's so important. Such a huge part of this is just teaching people to fact-check. You can build and maintain a pretty solid trust in the AI systems you're using, or at least checks and balances. I call it being intellectually cynical. It can create kind of like a mental muscle group for you, for people within your organization, of learning to validate what you see and what you read. I mean, talk about free tools. That's probably one of the best tools available to us today.
I be on that GSE train, never stopping. Catch me over here, rapping over chopping. I mean over Chopin. No one sees the moment. It's never been done before. I'm original, man.